So I'm doing another World War II recipe from my Victory Binding of the American Woman's Cookbook, wartime edition. So this was a 1942 cookbook. As I pointed out previously, it was dedicated to General MacArthur. If you go to the very back, we have a section specifically on wartime cookery. It talks about, saving oils, since that was something that was a shortage. But they also talk about, as this is an American cookbook instead of a British one, on actually encouraging people to eat more eggs in place of meat. I mentioned that in the comments of one of my other videos. We had an abundance of eggs here, and we would dry them and send them to the UK. That was actually my grandmother's job during the war, was working in one of those factories. I also had met a gentleman a few months back that was talking to me about his time during the war. He worked on a chicken farm that his family owned, and he actually tried to join the military, got on the bus, showed up at the recruiter's office, and they found out he worked on a chicken farm, and they sent him right back home. So this was obviously, even with our abundance, they valued these eggs. But they talk about nutrition and things like that too, and also eating more economically. I found this section on reducing your sugar usage in canning and making jellies pretty interesting, and using honey substitutes. And they have some menu plans. One of these days I'm going to have to sit down and do one of these menu plans for the whole day. But today we are looking at a chicken pot pie with a sweet potato crust. It calls for 3 cups of diced cooked chicken, 1 cup diced cooked carrots, 6 cooked small white onions, 1 tablespoon chopped parsley, 1 cup of milk, 1 cup of chicken broth, 2 tablespoons of flour, a teaspoon of salt, and 1/8 of a teaspoon of pepper. I left the salt out of this because I used a commercial chicken broth that was already well seasoned, and I didn't want it to be overly salty. But the directions are: arrange chicken, carrots, onion, and parsley in layers in casserole. Combine milk and chicken broth. Add slowly to flour. Blending well, cook until thickened, stirring constantly. Season and pour over the chicken and vegetables in casserole. Cover with sweet potato crust. Bake in moderate oven, 350 degrees, about 40 minutes. Serve 6 to 8. I'm going to say this was popular enough in my house it only served 4. So the crust involves 1 cup sifted flour, a teaspoon of baking powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 cup cold mashed sweet potato, a 1/3 cup melted butter, and 1 egg well beaten. And it says sift flour, baking powder, and salt. Work in mashed potatoes, melted butter, and egg. Roll a 1/4 inch thick and cover chicken. I'm going to assume they mean cover the whole thing since it's listed here. So I started with to make the sweet potato crust first, which meant sifting together the flour, baking powder, and salt into the bowl. Then I added the mashed sweet potatoes, and I got those just by baking some sweet potatoes and scooping them out. And the melted butter and a well-beaten egg. And then just using the pastry paddle of my KitchenAid, mixed this up. Next was layering the chicken, the carrots, the onion that was already cooked, and the parsley in the bowl. The recipe did not say how to cut the onions or how to cook them, so I just made a huge batch of sauteed onions. I will say that even a pound of onions did cook down to a small amount, and the parsley came from my garden, which made me happy. So next was making the sauce. So it was 2 tablespoons of flour, and then you mix the chicken broth and milk together. I did use oat milk because that's what I typically keep on hand. And then start slowly pouring it in so that it doesn't clump. You make a nice paste and then start thinning it out. And of course, I started pouring the sauce over before realizing I had not put the last layer of onions in. So I did that. And then finished pouring the sauce. Next was rolling out the sweet potato pastry. I'm going to say I wish I had chilled this appropriately and maybe put a little more flour in it because it was a little hard. It was a little too soft to handle. And it made it difficult to roll it out to a 1/4 of an inch. I think I rolled it out more like a 1/2 inch. Just so I could lift it up and get it into the casserole dish. And that was still a little messy, as you are about to see. Just a little bit of the gravy seeped out. Oops. I was very happy with the final product. As I said, there are a few changes I would like to make. I think some of these recipes that I've done, I'm going to update, maybe with a little bit modern techniques or make some adjustments that I would like to see. This one would be chill the pastry and cook the carrots.